Live and recording, people. Live and recording. This is not a drill. Welcome to another exciting episode of Friday Night Feels. I am licensed mental health counselor and certified life coach Patrick Monette. Friday Night Feels is a show that focuses on a variety of wellness-related issues, such as mental health, addiction, health concerns, stress management, relationships, mindfulness, and much more. The focus of the show is to create connection and be able to talk about issues that affect all of us and how to be the healthiest versions of ourselves that we can be. Each show, I invite a guest to come and join me and talk about their experiences and the services that they offer. My incredible guest this fine Friday night is Valter Feleja from Canada.
Thank you.
Welcome to Friday Night Feels. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure. And I'm just going to share a little of your background so people know. We were just talking before the show started of how many it's already planned. He's coming back when I saw his bio, because there's so many great things here that fit in with that I'm interested in, that I want to learn more about. And I just think it sounds like he's doing some amazing work. His journey started in high school, being into athletics. He's one of the top football players in the country at his position and had schools south of the border interested in him. Then an injury took him out of playing the sport that he loved, which at the time seemed like a tragedy. But later on, he learned that it would be a blessing. He took some time and did some soul searching and realized his true passion was in helping others. He pursued massage therapy and from there continued to add different modalities such as craniosacral therapy, acupuncture, personal training, bioenergetic and tolerance elimination, iridology, blood analysis, and life coaching. Valter discovered that his definite major purpose was to help and inspire others to reach optimal levels of health, mental health, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And through the creation of Vitality Health and Wellness and the two online coaching programs, Mind, Body, and Soul and Men of Vitality, feels that his purpose will be fulfilled. How awesome. Okay, so where do we want to dive in? I'm so excited.
So I might, you know what, maybe I'll just explain what some of them are, because some of the things are pretty straightforward. A lot of people know what massage is, and that type of stuff. So I think, massage is pretty straightforward. Acupuncture, I think most people know. The way I explain acupuncture is based on 12 meridians that correspond to your organs. I think of meridians like energy highways that run along your body that you can't see to the naked eye, but they're there. And what flows through them is your chi energy. And that stands for life force energy in English, okay? And I think of acupuncture points like entrances in a highway, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I think of pain as a traffic jam. So I kind of look at the needles as like sending the police in to free up the traffic. And once it frees up your flow of your chi, that's when your body starts to heal. That's how
I love that.
So a simple explanation, someone can picture that in their mind. So that's how acupuncture is effective. Now, North America, they kind of just say because the needle punctures the skin, white blood cells rush to that area, which is true. That's not false, but there's far more to it than that. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely more on an energetic tip where you get the most benefit. Craniosacral therapy is like light manipulation of the skull and low back, right? It's kind of like osteopathic.
Okay.
I use it a lot to release a lot of headaches and tension, which is so common in today's world, especially with poor posture and people being at, desks and at computers and looking down at their phones. Iridology. So iridology is that I can look into a person's eye and assess them from their eyes.
Okay.
Okay. So every part of your eye represents part of your body. Certain eye types will indicate certain things, shapes, colors, all these different things indicate certain things to me to let me know what's going on with that person health-wise, emotionally, and that type of stuff. BIE, this one might take some time. So BIE stands for bioenergetic and tolerance elimination. It's based on quantum physics, traditional Chinese medicine. The quantum physics part is that everything is energy. And I'm sure most of your followers know this already, but I'm just going to recap it, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Everything is energy. So because everything is energy, everything has its own frequency. And that's what makes it what it is. So they're able to measure the frequency of certain things and put it in vials. Okay. I muscle test using the vials. And if that person tests weak, I use this machine I have to send the frequencies back in the body through acupuncture points, again, traveling through the meridians into the grounder that they'll be holding. And as it travels through the meridian, it's like your cells are reading the barcode. I'm kind of rebooting the body how we reboot our phones and our computers.
Mm-hmm.
The body starts to, oh, I know what those vibrations are, and recalibrates itself and heals itself.
Wow.
Yeah. So I feel people with well, no, how I kind of put it, I'm like the catalyst. The body heals itself.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of helping the body heal itself. And things I've helped people with is digestive issues, um, seasonal allergies, very common. What else? Hormones, a lot of hormonal issues, thyroid, menstrual cycle issues, low testosterone in men. I've helped 33 couples conceive
Oh my
through
gosh.
BIE. 32 were BIE. One was through needles, acupuncture needles.
Okay.
What else? And then emotional stuff, dealing with. Sometimes I'll do my coaching with BIE to help release some of the stuff they're holding on that's not even theirs. It's passed on generationally. It's called hereditary miasm. So as far back as 7 to 10 generations, holding on into your subconscious mind in your body. So BIE will help release those emotional things, but you still have to do the work because the program is still in there. So it's not an easy scapegoat way of getting out of it.
It's not flipping on a light switch.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that, but at least it'll help release some of the gunk. But the programming's still there. The neuroplasticity is still wired. Your brain's still wired that way. So you still have to do the work, whoever's coaching you, which would be me or you, some people like us, right? So that's BIE. And then life coaching. My life coaching program, I kind of created based on 4 things I saw that were sticking out to me, that I saw there were issues. One, most people don't know how their mind works. And if you don't know how your mind works, that means the mind's a great servant, terrible master. It'll run you, and that's not what you want, right? So you have to learn to master your mind, but you have to understand what it is. Most people don't. 2, they actually don't understand their connection to source, whatever they call it. You can call it God, Allah, Yahweh, infinite intelligence, universe. You can call it bacon for all I care. I don't really care what you call it. It's there. And whatever the person feels comfortable, I will call it that. But it's there and it exists. And you have to understand what it is because it's out there. Then it helps you understand who you truly are as a human being, beyond your name, beyond all the things you've been told you are, and going into that a little deeper, and then understanding universal laws. And I get deeper into all these concepts and how they kind of relate and how they can create basically their life from this place, from this information.
So it really does sound like you incorporate the mind, body, spirit into everything that you do.
Absolutely.
Do you find people are resistant to that? Like, I'm just thinking of people I know, and it's like, yeah. Let's just go with resistance.
Resistance is a good word. Okay, so I think in terms of like the mindfulness stuff, there is a little bit of resistance. So, and there's different type of people who are resistant. So you have the person who thinks they know it all. Okay, so the person who thinks they know it all knows nothing, because you stop growing once you think you know it all. The most intelligent people are the ones who know that they don't know.
Yes.
Those are the most intelligent. They might be intelligent, be aware, and understand things. They also know what they know is very minuscule to the knowledge that's out there into the whole universe.
Yes, I had a coach once who said, always know there's someone smarter than you in the room.
Yes.
And that at first it was like, oh, what does that mean? But it goes right into it. It says like, I can always learn. And it's that dose of humility that I think, I needed, of just, oh, I can learn from anyone.
Absolutely. And it's like, it kind of gets the ego out too, right? Like, because you literally can learn from anybody. Like, life is constantly teaching us. Like, I remember being at a wedding and seeing this little girl get on the dance floor, and it was like, I think it was like a hip hop song or something, but she was rocking out hard and putting like a hand up, and she was jamming hard. And everyone's clapping, going nuts. She wasn't doing it for the attention. She was so present to the moment for her,
right,
that she was loving life at that moment.
Right.
And that was the lesson I learned from a 4-year-old. But if you think you know everything, you don't learn.
Right. And that, I feel, leads to more misery and more anger and more resentment and more health problems.
100%. Because you're just storing it in your body.
Right. Right.
right? I know it all. I know it all. I know it all. And then you're just angry, constant resentment, guilt, and you're living it from a lower vibrational state.
Right.
And
Right.
you're constantly in a state of dis-ease, which creates disease. And it's just the vicious cycle.
And what's interesting is I was listening to you, present what everything that you're doing. I can think of so many people who are critical of stuff like that. Like, is it evidence based? Is it scientific? All of this, and you know, it's sort of like sometimes we just have to say, "Shut up." Like it's when I find anytime I've met someone who's asking those questions, they're in a state of like misery. Not everyone who's asked, like, is it evidence based, but like the doubting Thomases and acupuncture for me is a perfect example because I had someone in my family who's very scientific and very wants to know all the studies and everything, and
Sure.
had some health issues a few years ago, and then ended up going to acupuncture after doctors couldn't follow the problem. And
Yeah.
then the problem was solved after going to acupuncture.
Amazing. That's
And I
amazing.
was like, and then I started a few years ago, it was pre-COVID, of going to acupuncture on and off. And I had someone sort of challenge me about it once, like, like, why are you spending that money? Again, money, like, it's not covered by insurance, at least in the States,
Yeah.
most places. And I said, it's an hour and a half that I have someone taking care of me.
Yeah.
I don't even like at that point in that conversation, I wasn't going to convince them and everything of what was right or wrong. I didn't care if I had needles in me or not. I just had someone taking care of me for an hour and a half that I didn't have to do anything.
Absolutely.
And to
And
me, that was
again,
priceless.
and it's funny, it's like, again, like you do get challenged on these things, and I'm okay with the challenge, right? Like, because I'm very knowledgeable, I'll explain what I can explain. If they don't, but there's certain people that don't really want the answer because they don't want it to be true.
Right.
They just want to
Right.
be right. They're
Right.
more concerned about being right than knowing something new,
Right.
if that makes sense. But yeah, I do get challenged. I get challenged on more sometimes acupuncture, BIE gets challenged a little bit, which is okay. And the example, because sometimes they'll be like, is it a placebo? And I'm like, well, I know it's not because I do it on myself and I've had it done before. And I've treated a 6-month-old, and the 6-month-old doesn't know what I'm treating her on. So this
Right.
poor kid was like, uh, everything was an irritant to her. Her mother's breast milk, her the food they're trying to feed her, the couch they laid her on, everything would irritate this poor kid. So I probably did at least 10 sessions on this kid of different things. Everything cleared
Wow.
because there's a lot less resistance too. Because as you get older, you start building up resistance emotionally and physically,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So this kid was like an open vessel. Like, okay, here we go, boom, 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 done, da, 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 done. It was
Right.
amazing. So it's like, so there is no placebo when it comes to a 6-month-old because she doesn't know the difference.
Right. And my response to that, if someone said that to me, I would say, I don't care because I feel better. Like,
Yeah,
let's say it is a placebo. Okay, it
sure.
wins. It won. It's successful.
At the end of the day, it's the result, right? I totally
Right.
agree with that too.
Right. So what is the process like when so I'm sorry, did you want to talk about some of the other I feel like
No, 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 it's
interrupted you
okay. No,
at
no,
BIE.
that's okay. Yeah, yeah,
Is,
no, that's fine.
is that and sorry, I wanted to just go back to some of the other things that you what and so you were talking about etiology a little bit, and then you
Here we
still
go.
do
Yeah.
blood analysis and life coaching.
Yeah, so blood analysis I don't do as much because when I do it, it's like a lot of people. I'm seeing the same thing through the iridology. I'm seeing the same thing through the BIE. So
Hmm.
most people, it's a little cheaper to do that. So it does. I didn't really get into. Kind of let go that one because they just want to do more BIE. So I was like, okay, that's fine.
Hmm.
But I did do the schooling for it. I
Okay.
found it fascinating how much your blood can tell about you. It blows my mind, and just the way that cells are formed and how everything is kind of formulated. It's just like all right there. It's kind of like the eye.
Right.
It's fascinating. The body doesn't lie. It's telling you everything. We just have to know how to read it,
Right. Right.
right? So blood analysis and then the coaching again that's a process too. Like we were talking about off air here before, it was like you're going to get resistance in the coaching too. It's like
Mhm.
because again, a lot of people don't feel like they need it, or you have the people who feel like, what's the point? You can't help. This doesn't work. I don't need
Mhm.
to talk to anybody.
Mhm.
you know, that type of stuff. Or they're so resistant because they're so scared to open up to
Right.
something,
Right.
right?
And I
So
think also when they have, they also the trauma of when it hasn't gone well.
yes, yes, very true, very true. And the reality, even for myself, I feel like when people get coached, there are, and obviously everything's vibrational, right? So I find the right people do come to me, like they gravitate to me because I'm not everyone's cup of tea either, right? And I know that because I'm a very loving person, kind and calm, but I drop it to you hard and I'm straightforward,
I,
right?
I
I
say
don't play
filter
around,
free.
right? So I'm just like,
I'm going to say it with love, but
yes,
are you
yeah,
sitting down?
yeah, exactly. So it's gonna be a little bit of tough love in there too.
Yeah.
And some people can't handle that. And I know who can, who can't. I can read people pretty well.
Hmm.
But the reality is it's gonna come eventually. So it's not for everyone. And I totally understand that. So if you're a person that can take that, you shouldn't probably take me as your coach.
Right. Right. And you
Right.
know what's interesting with that is too is I've always been more of a direct personality myself. But what I realized in a lot of coaching and even in the mental health fields, there was such a resistance to use confrontation in a healthy way. And people always think confrontation is conflict, but it's just saying, well, you're telling me this, but then you're doing this. It doesn't add up to me. Like it's not adversarial.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
I think when you're a good helper in whatever aspect that is, being able to say, hey, I care enough about you to say this doesn't add up with
Hmm.
what you're working on.
Hmm.
And
Agreed.
I think people get very reactive to that sometimes.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, again, it depends the topic, the subject. Um, you know, if you confront them on it, sometimes they're going to blow up at you, or sometimes they're just like they're kind of in shock too because no one's really put them in their place.
Right.
You know, like I've only had it probably one time in my whole career. I've been doing it for a while. So one guy came in, he wanted some advice, some help on his mindset and relationships, and I was like, cool. And then we started talking, and he interrupted me at least 4 times in 10 minutes. So I stopped and I said, do you think you know more than I do? He's like, what? I go, do you think you know more than I do? He's like, no. I'm like, then why are you interrupting me? Because I'm like, the facts are you don't have what you desire. So it tells me you don't know more than I do because I can help you get there.
Right. Right.
So that's why you're here. Now, if you learn, you have coachable. Anyone who's seeing a coach of some sort or anybody for help, you have high learn and high willingness to accept change.
Right.
If you do not have those two things at a high level, you're not coachable. And if you're not coachable, nothing's going to change in your life. You're wasting your time, you're wasting that other person's time, and you're wasting your money.
Right.
So you got to be coachable. So I told him, you have an option. I'll let you leave. I won't even charge you. Or you stay here, shut your mouth, and listen to what I'm telling you. And he was quiet.
Oh yay.
Yeah.
So so when people come in to see you, Walter, what does that look like? I mean, because you offer so many services that it can, I assume, like sometimes it could be overwhelming for people to say, well, how do I know what I actually need?
That is fair. That is very fair. Okay. So what's interesting is most of the time they kind of start massage the
Okay.
way because they heard about the different things I do. Then they kind of talk to me during my massages. Then they're like, you know what? I want to dive into XYZ.
Okay.
And they kind of go from there, right? And it kind of gives me a heads up. Or sometimes they'll just message me like, okay, I see all these things you're doing. I'm not sure what I should kind of go towards. So I'm like, cool. Like, well, what do you want to like? What's your needs? What are you trying to achieve? What's your goal? And then we kind of discussed. I'm like, hey, I think you need a little bit more coaching, or you need more BIE, or I
Hmm.
think you need a little bit of massage acupuncture, or you know, you need one of the programs, the men's program, or etc. Right. So that's how I kind of differentiate from there. Right. Split
Hmm.
it up. Okay, you do this, you do that, and it's go time.
Okay. So that's really cool. So they're able to like come in and see different things and then have those conversations. It that's such amazing gift to be able to offer people of saying, hey, it is overwhelming, because life is overwhelming, right? And
Yep.
sometimes just knowing, and then what do most of us do? We go to the internet, and then it gets even more like confusing and stuff like that of, pros and cons. And it's sometimes you just got to jump in and try it.
Absolutely. And it's funny. It depends on the person. Most of my clients are women. I find they're a little more coachable. They're a little more open to trying different things. The guys are a little more resistant.
Mhm.
But eventually they do, once they meet me, they do it. Right. Because I think it's the unknown, right? They're just like, no, because some of them don't even want to see their own doctor.
Right.
Never
Right.
mind, talk to some guy about random stuff
Yeah.
or personal stuff, right? So, but once they get to know me and meet me, then they become comfortable. They're like, okay, they feel my energy, like, no, this guy's solid.
Mhm.
And then we talk and we can talk like, guy talk and all that type of stuff. And they know they're in a safe place, they're not being judged, and they let it rip. And that's when things start to open up, and then that's when their healing begins.
Yeah. I love working with all people, but I think being a man and having certain experiences, I love working with men, and I focus a lot of, as I was telling you, a lot of my coaching is programming and support for men, because one of the things that I've heard over and over and over again is the stereotype and the judgment that men don't feel.
Mm,
Like, he doesn't have any emotions. He's the Tin Man. He's heartless. Fix him. He's
yeah.
broken. And I have to hold it in of just like, shut up. Like, no one wants to be told that they're broken, or they're, and this is like not just professionally. Like, I see it in TV, I see it in friendships, I
Yes.
see it on talk shows. Like, it's like epidemic proportion of the belief that because a man or men don't do it the way someone else thinks they do, then something's wrong with them.
Yeah. Agreed.
And so I kind of like I appreciate that you're out there doing that work of saying, hey, let's just figure out how you do this, and what your process is.
Yeah, because again, every generalizing a little too much, you can't do that, right? That's why in certain aspects I have some generalities, but then it's like, okay, but you got to drop it for that personal guy. Every guy's different.
Yeah.
Certain things you're gonna have to work on, like that are kind of generally the same, but
Hmm.
everyone has their own story, so you kind of have to drop it a little different, right?
Right.
And it's interesting. My men's program, so my whole focus on the men's program is to raise testosterone levels naturally and connect to their masculine and sexual energy at a higher level.
Okay. Can we go there a little bit, because I think that's
Yeah.
a great conversation, and you and I touched a little bit on this hormone issue that I didn't know was a problem for men,
Yes.
and you were telling me about that.
Yeah. So I kind of look at it from three levels. You have the physical plane, which most men just live from. Okay.
Hmm.
And you have the mental, emotional, and then you have the spiritual. Okay.
Hmm.
So I try to drop it to them first in the physical plane because that's where most men really thrive from, and that's what they know and most connected to.
Hmm.
Okay. So if you look at statistical things, I would say 90% of men have low testosterone. Okay. The average or one third of men are infertile, and the average 22-year-old in 2020 had the equivalent testosterone levels of a 67-year-old back in 2000.
Wow.
Okay, this is how bad, and it's weird because no one's really talking about this.
Right. Yeah.
It's rapidly dropping. Okay, now we can get into why, and we can do it if we have the time. Like, so, do you want to get into why I think that's
Oh my
happening?
God, I will go anywhere.
Okay,
Like,
let's do it.
because this
Let's do it.
conversation is so fascinating. Yeah.
So, why I believe what's happening. Okay, so I think it's kind of done on purpose, if you want me to be honest, because I
Okay.
think it's a lot easier to control a population of people with weak men.
Hmm.
If your
Okay.
testosterone is low, you're easy to control. There's no William Wallace's out there. There's no one to fight back if your testosterone is weak and low.
Okay.
Um, and then you can lower a population because if you have one third that are infertile, and then certain people, the average couples are having maybe one kid tops. Some people are not having children at all. So the population is dropping significantly. Smaller population, easier to control.
Hmm.
Okay. So why? What's the reasons though? Reasons. Now you have uh, hormones in our food, right? And I remember talking to, this is years ago when I first started massaging. There was a Rastafarian man who came in, and I think he was Jewish, the other guy. And I know this sounds like a joke, like, oh, Rastafarian and a Jewish guy walked in a bar. Like, it's not that. It's, okay. So I treated these guys, and they were telling me how, in their own way, how their cultures believe they eat, when you eat an animal, you inherit their spirit type of thing.
Okay.
That's cool. So I'm like, scientifically, what does that mean? So what I believe is you kind of take on the animal. So let's say an animal lived a very stressful life. So how we're raising animals now and farming them and all that, they're not grazing and eating grass. They're stuck in this little thing, knowing they're going to die, eating food they don't want to eat. They're away from their family. They're upset. You're eating stress on a plate. Because it releases tons of stress hormone. So that's how I kind of interpret their belief system. I was like, oh, that makes sense to me. Because all the stress hormone in that meat, you're going to take on. So that's going to throw your hormones out of whack. Pesticides. I can't remember the name of the pesticide off the top of my head. But that pesticide, when tested on male frogs, made male frogs into female frogs. Okay. Then you have, lack of exercise, poor diet, BPAs and plastics, chemtrails, poor water quality, poor sleep, high levels of stress. Add these all together, you're done. Oh, even the clothes we're wearing has plastics, and the demasculation of men, right? Through like media and etc. They're just demasculating men, and men don't know how to be masculine. So if you don't know how to connect to the masculine energy, it's going to be hard for your body to connect to that testosterone level to be healthy and be more optimal.
I just want to share, like, I remember I was teaching in the university that when the phrase toxic masculinity was really, and I remember I understand what it means. I get the theory behind it, but I was like, this needs to be a different phrase, because it's not about the toxic masculinity. Like, it's the wrong phrase. It's the wrong phrase.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like when you hear different people talk about toxic masculinity, some people believe it doesn't even exist. I definitely believe it exists because we live in a law, like the 3D realities of laws of duality, right? There's always an opposite to everything.
Right.
So of course, if there's positive masculinity, there's toxic masculinity. If there's positive femininity, there's toxic femininity.
Right.
Absolutely. It's ridiculous to think there isn't toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity to me would lead to like violence, war, like that type of thing. That doesn't make sense. It shouldn't have to go to that point. Now, understanding men should be strong and should be this and should be able to defend themselves and their loved ones, I do agree with that. But it shouldn't be to a point where you forcefully go out there and do it. Does that make sense? And for me, my thinking, like the stuff we're talking about the program, I'm not talking about Viking, go chop someone's head off type of stuff. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, it's not about mastering other people and conquering other people. It's mastering your mind and conquering yourself.
Right.
That's what I would call the new alpha male to me. If you can learn to master who you are truly, then you are the true new alpha male. And that's what we talk about in my program. So because it's all connected. If your mindset's not there, your body's not responding, because your body's responding to your mind.
Right.
You have to do all the right. You have to do all the right things physically, right? We're exercising, eating properly, water, sleep, all this type of stuff. But then you also have to start feeding your mind good quality thoughts. Your self-image has to match who you need to become in order to achieve the goal.
Right.
So if you're doing all the right things physically, but you still think you're a terrible human being, you're not worthy of anything, your body's just not going to respond the way you think it should. Right. And there was this great study. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was with apes. And I don't remember if it was chimpanzees exactly or which type of apes. 20 apes in a closed facility. The scientists had to guess by behavior who was a alpha and work their way down. Then they get their blood work and they kind of guessed right with who was the top all the way down to the 20th ranked ape. They take the 20th ranked ape, put them in a different closed facility, had 4 females, food, abundance in food, and that ape's behavior changed. Testosterone went through the roof. Okay. So why is that? Because I think the environment helped create the ape's mindset to think, look at me, I'm the conqueror. I have the food, I have this, I have that. Ooh, 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 right? Then all of a sudden, so when they test his testosterone through the roof, okay. Now you put him back in the cage with the other 19, he still thinks he's the big dog. Gets slapped around a couple times, he went right back down.
Mm.
So how I take that study from a human perspective, again, it's your mind. It's still the mind because the environment dictated that ape's mindset, and that's why his body changed. So most people are probably in environments maybe they don't have any self-worth. They're not appreciated at work. They don't love what they do. They might have terrible relationships with their partners or with their children if they have children. They might have struggle with friends or have no friends or whatever. They're struggling. The environment consistently is telling them they're not worthy.
Yeah, and that something's wrong with them.
Exactly. So if the environment keeps telling you you're not worthy, there's something wrong, it keeps on beating that down to you. Your thought process, your mind's programmed to think that's true.
Right.
And if it thinks it's true, then your body's just responding to your mindset.
Right.
So how can your testosterone be up if you think you're not like a high level man or a human being, period?
Right.
It
And
just
that
can't
word
function the way it
worthy
should.
is so powerful.
Super powerful. So like we go into these deeper concepts, like, yeah, I'll get into, all like the lifting and all that type of stuff, but we get into more of the mindset stuff too. Also getting into stuff like relationship aspects and sex, masturbation. I teach you a couple like tantric techniques because as men, and most men don't know this, which I find fascinating. We can have multiple orgasms without ejaculating.
Right. Right.
Okay. So it's like, and if I can compare it, it'd be like an ejaculatory orgasm is like a 10 out of 10 in feeling, right?
Right. Right.
It's such a hard high spike with a heavy drop.
Right. Right.
Okay? Where if you hit that energetic, I call it an energetic orgasm. If you hit that energetic orgasm, it's about like an 8, but there's a very small drop and it sustains. It stays longer. So when you're making love with your partner, it's interchangeable with each other, right? So it's like, why wouldn't you want that? Plus, sustaining from ejaculation will raise your testosterone levels as well, right? So
and it's funny, like, and where do we talk about that? Like in high school, health class, or and
that's not
like,
happening.
Never, no. And so it's like we don't know what we don't know and how much that affects us.
Exactly. So it's like it's funny because when I bring it up, like it's guys have a tough time wrapping their mind around it. So how I explain it is, and I don't know if like a lot of people understand chakras. So we have more than 7, but you have your main 7 that run along your spine, and you have your sacral, right? Sacral chakra, and all the energy starts to fester there. Okay, so you have movement, stimulation, all that type of stuff. When you're about at least 8, almost a 9 to climax, right? If we're talking about like a scale, you almost have to picture taking that energy and squeezing those muscles, like PC muscles, push that energy through breath work up the spine, so it can go throughout your body, open up your heart chakra and throughout your body. So you'll feel the orgasm throughout your body, but it takes time to master this.
Right.
This is not easy. And I always tell people, always practice on your own first and not with a partner.
Right. Right.
Because it just doesn't make it as pleasurable with the partner either, because they're like, what are you doing?
Right.
Yeah,
I'm trying something out.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Just shut up.
I'm doing my breathing.
So it's
yeah, and it's like, and even like there's so many different ways to approach that, of like, that's another topic of men can't talk about sex. Like, when you think about, it's interesting because one of the things that pulled me into your bio was your trauma, the loss in high school.
Yeah.
Right around that time, and I just think, wow, high school is, and this is my experience, it's like it's such hell in some different ways.
Yeah.
And so I just remember like how guys would talk about sex, and it was always as if you were supposed to be born knowing this, and so if you ever asked any questions, then something was wrong with you.
What's
It's
wrong
like,
with you?
how, but I don't know.
Yeah,
But I'm
it's
supposed to
true.
know. and then you're supposed to go be a stallion and do all this stuff, right?
Yeah, of
And
course.
it's like, oh, how do I do this so I'm healthy on all levels?
Yes. Yeah, no, it's true. And it's funny because you think about any trauma, and I was reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, right? And there's a quote from there. It says, amore fate, right? Like love your fate. And essentially talking about how it's not happening to you, it's happening for you, and living from that
Oh,
mindset.
yeah.
And I'm like, like if I could go back and talk to younger Valter at that time, be like, this happened for you, this didn't happen to you. Because at the time you think, oh damn, that was the goal. Like that's what I wanted to do.
Right.
But it kind of steered me in a different way where I needed to go. And the universe knows better than we did.
Right.
Right. So I
What?
kind of
I
look
don't
at,
have control? I want
yeah, right.
control. I
And
want the
people,
power.
it's so true. And it's funny because it's like, I tell people life is like a maze. You can only see as far in front of you as you can. But if you put the right coordinates in the GPS, which is this, and you put and your frequency is strong enough, which is your emotions, you send it out to the universe, it's going to lead you to the right path. Right? It might not be the way we think it should be. But if we let go, they say let go and let God, then we're good to go. But like you said, if we need, oh my God, no, I need to control everything, and it's got to be like this, and it has to be this person, and it has to be at this time, and it has to be this amount of money, and you're going to be in misery because there's so much control, sense of attachment. Where there's attachment, there's pain.
Right.
And that's the
And
Buddhist
expectations.
Exactly. And to me, it's like, no, if you just let go and know generally what you desire and live from this place and be open to the experience that life has to offer, oh, it makes life so much more fun.
Yeah.
Right. I do think it should
And
be.
less miserable.
Yeah. And I do think it should be a fun process. Yeah, you're going to have ups and downs. It's part of the human experience. You're meant to feel different emotions. You're not meant to, think you're supposed to be happy every single moment of the day. That's not realistic. But are you supposed to enjoy things and learn things and expand? Yeah, I do. I really think it's part of being the human. Like my belief of us as humans, I believe we're individualizations of the universe, right? So we're spirits having human experience through our five senses in our body in this 3D reality of time and space, right? And we're here to expand our consciousness and grow and help others in the process. That's what I believe that the human experience really is. So what does that look like? Expanding your consciousness to me is learning the lessons you're meant to learn and have amazing experiences through this body that we're gifted. And in the meantime, master your mind, because the greatest gift that God gave us, because it gives us the faculty to create whatever we want. Essentially, it makes us God and goddesses walking on this planet. We just don't know it. So understanding that on a deeper level, how could we ever have a poor self-image? That doesn't make any sense. If that makes sense.
Yes, I'm just thinking. I've worked with so much with trauma where I'm like, I know exactly where it comes from, because that's
Right?
I get what you're saying, but then when you're in a world where all of the messages goes back to that unworthiness, it's hard to break through, and that's why it's so important to find people who will, with tough love of saying you are worthy, you're believing the shit.
Yeah. It's kind of like, again, diving into the mind. It's like, that's just a program you have.
Yeah, kind of like the Matrix.
100%. It's
Yeah.
just a program.
Yep.
So to me, I look at it like, if you learn, like I kind of put it like the conscious mind is like the gardener, the subconscious mind is the garden. Okay. So I look at shitty programming that you have in your subconscious mind like weeds.
Okay.
So we got to help them rip out the weeds, but we're also planting seeds in their mind.
Right.
But they got to nurse their seeds when they're not with us coaching wise.
Right.
Because we can't be with them 24/7.
Right. We want them to be able to take care of themselves.
Does that make sense? So to rip out the weeds, then this is when the new programming is going to flourish and grow.
Right. Can we kind of just loop back to a little bit more of the testosterone discussion, because there was just a couple. I just find that fascinating. How does one learn whether is that they have testosterone? Is that they have like blood work done or something?
Yeah, so the easiest one would be blood work. So you'd be
Okay.
asking for total testosterone and free testosterone. And then just maybe some indicators that you might be lower. Uh Mood swings, lack of drive, lower libido, gaining weight, uh harder to put on muscle or maintain muscle, no morning erections. Those are all indicators.
Okay.
Tired all the time. That's another one.
And so I guess I'm just thinking of people I know. If I think people equate testosterone with wanting to have children, like in the stereotypical
Yeah, yeah,
way.
and that's part of it. That's
But
part. There's way
it's
more.
a natural hormone that we need.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, think about, I'll give you an example of one of my clients, obviously no names, it's confidential, but so one of my recent clients came in, and if you were to look at him, you wouldn't think he was low. Okay.
Okay.
And he was just really tired, just bogged down, overly emotional, like just not like himself. I'm like, I go get blood work.
Okay.
Like, okay, gets blood work, brings it back. So to put it in perspective, here in Canada, I think US is very similar. They would say 275 nanograms per deciliter to 750 nanograms per deciliter. If you're in that range, you're healthy.
Okay.
Okay. I would say that's too low. I would say 700 plus is more optimal. If we're talking about total testosterone. Okay.
Okay.
This guy was 35 nanograms per deciliter. He wasn't even in the hundreds. So this guy could, like, his health is tarnished. It's like he could have a heart attack at any time. His bones will be, bones of an 80-year-old woman in a couple of years. He have osteoporosis because his testosterone's way too low. And obviously, there's no way he's going to lose muscle mass, gain weight, and there's no way he's going to be functionally active. There's no way. So this is going to affect you in your entire life because it's going to affect your confidence, your energy, your drive. Um, I don't know. It just affects guys mentally so heavily. I could just see it.
Right.
They don't
Right.
feel like they're in themselves. They don't feel strong. They don't feel confident. Um, and it's an unfortunate way to live the rest of your life like that.
Why do you think this isn't talked about? Like of all the years that I've ever gone to a doctor, they've never once ever talked. You know what I mean? Like they've never asked or mentioned that to me as a man.
Yeah. So maybe they're not bringing it up because you have no signs and symptoms, which is
Okay.
fine. I totally get that. That's fine. But I think, like, I don't like, depending, because a lot of people will say they'll go to their doctor. First of all, if they do get blood work, they'll be like, "Oh, how'd it go?" The doctor will be like, "You're fine."
Yeah.
So you're sitting there
Okay.
and you
Good.
expect, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
And you're, because they're the professional, you trust them.
Yeah.
But if you got the numbers, and if someone was reaching out to me or look, was like, okay, what do you say about my numbers? Are they, and I'm like, if you're not 700 plus, like, or at least creep in there, you're low.
Mhm.
So we just got to put some work in. That's all it is. And a lot of people think the answer is TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. That's very common.
Mhm.
I'm not a big like. I think if it's deathly, like you're deathly low and there's no other option, sure. But you have to know what you're diving into. You have to make sure your endocrinologist is like top notch. I think it should be totally only done in an emergency status.
Mm.
The way I look at it, the problem with TRT is once you start it, you always have to be on it.
Okay.
Okay. And what you're doing is putting this, so you have the hypothalamus in your brain, your pituitary. Okay. And these things start to get the signal. Okay, yeah, we got to start making luteinizing hormone, which sends a signal down to your testicles to the Leydig cells, and they tell the Leydig cells to make testosterone. Okay, boom, they make it. Boom, it's in your bloodstream. We're good to go. Okay, that's why we have beards. That's why we have muscle, etc. That's what makes us men.
Mhm.
Now, all of a sudden, you get the TRT put in your bloodstream, and now your testicles are like, whoa, we got a lot of testosterone in here. Okay. And the signal gets sent to the brain, to the hypothalamus pituitary. It's like, yo, we don't need to make any more. So it doesn't send any luteinizing hormone, and the latex cells just shrink because they're not being used. You don't use it, you lose it.
Mhm.
The body knows it doesn't have to make anymore. So it starts to do other things and using its energy more like wisely, essentially. And then now you're not going to get anything out of those testicles. And now you're gonna pay X amount. I can't remember how much it is a week. It's like close to almost like $100 a week.
Wow.
So imagine for the rest of your life, you're gonna have to pay that and inject
Yeah.
yourself, and then you're gonna have to figure out the right dosage because it could cause cardiovascular disease and all sorts of things too. Prostate issues, stuff like that.
And what are some of the, are you able to say what are some of the ways that people deal with that outside of that treatment?
Yeah, so that's what I talk about in the program. But
Okay.
yeah, so like we go into it deeper. Like I said, working out. We talk about sleeping patterns. We talk about water intake. I talk about alcohol, sex, masturbation. I talk about posture. I talk about chakra stuff. I talk about the metaphysical stuff.
Mhm.
I talk about fasting. I talk about macro ratios. I talk about food. I cover the possible causes, um,
So they're
everything.
getting their
Everything that's
money's worth.
Yeah, everything that's possible, it's in there. And
Yeah.
then in my coaching group, that's when I dive into more of the mindset. If we do
Right.
one-on-one, it's going to be a little more in depth for that person.
Mhm.
Then the group setting is kind of more general topics that they'll message me, ask the question, I take it up on the next call. So it's almost like that, like brotherhood type thing.
Mhm. Mhm. That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And so like when someone, if someone wants to come and work with you, like what does that process look like? Are you?
So they could either message me
Mhm.
either through Facebook, Instagram. They can email me. It's fine either way. I'm not too uptight about how they connect with me.
Mhm.
Uh, and then, I'll I almost rather them actually talk to me because I want to know what's best for them.
Mhm.
Right. Because there's different ways. Because I try to play with people's like, not everyone can afford everything. Right. So I
Mhm.
try to play
Mhm.
with what they can afford. Right. And if money's a little tight, that's cool. Like I can offer the cheapest version would be like, hey, just buy the program. You can do if you want to do it on your own, great. If the next level up would be in a group setting, one-on-one's the most expensive. Right. So if they're like, you
Mhm.
know what, I think right now I would love this that information. I'll run with it and do it on my own. And if I think I need more, great, I'll contact you, maybe be part of the group. Awesome. I'll accept that too. Because my thing is I just want to help as many guys as possible.
Right. Right.
And because I just don't think if you're used to living in a lower vibrational state, then you don't know you're even there.
Right. It's just
It's
what you know.
normal. It's all you know.
Yeah.
So, and I don't like using bad or good. It's just that's what it is, And if that's all you know, then you think that's normal. If you
Right.
think that's normal, then you don't think you need to change anything,
Mhm.
right? Until you've either seen somebody else that's in a higher vibe, and you're like, "Wow, man, that guy is like smiling all the time, laughing. He looks great, he's in great shape. His life looks like it's pretty put together. Holy, I want to be like that."
Mhm.
Okay, cool. You can.
Mhm.
You just gotta put the work in,
Right.
right? And then make it your own version because we're all again, it's not only cookie cutter. Like I don't know, it's how they try to picture success for men is so cookie cutter, which I don't
Mhm.
think that's true. I think if your form of success is living into bed and I don't know, being a farmer and meditating all day, and man, God bless, that's amazing.
Mhm. Mhm.
I honor that. Like if that's what you desire, I want to help you get there.
Mhm.
If it's driving Lamborghinis and thinking you're the coolest guy and picking up girls, cool. Like I'll honor that too. I don't care.
Right.
But whatever it is you desire, just make sure it's coming from your actual heart. And a lot of times I ask these main questions, especially when it comes to my mindfulness program or my men's program. When we talk about goals, it's like, do you know what you want? Because which is funny, majority of people don't.
Mhm.
Is it what you want or is it what you're told you want?
Mm.
Is it what you want or is it all you think you can get?
Mhm.
Uh, do you believe you deserve it? Um, do you believe you can get it? And are you afraid to lose it before you get it?
Mm, that's really cool questions.
Yeah,
Those are really cool questions.
yeah. So just to make them think,
Hmm.
people are not really aware of. They're not thinking. They're not like
Yeah, it's sort of like nose to the grindstone.
yes,
I just
yeah,
had to do this, and what I've seen too is also um, the belief sometimes that I'm not supposed to want more.
mm,
I've had that with discussions in my own family with different people of and especially people not just in my family but also like grew up like similar, um, communities and stuff like that. Of like we weren't ever taught in some ways of like, oh, reach for the star, like reach for the stars, but don't get a big head.
got it.
And why do you deserve more than someone else? Like, oh, like kind of like be the best you can, but like don't forget who you are. You know what I mean? It was like
Yeah, yeah, totally.
such a contrast for many
Yeah.
of us.
Well, it's funny. I used to joke around. I would call it the Canadian programming, where they tell you to be humble, right? And being humble is great. Like I understand what they're saying, but the way people perceive being humble is like almost putting yourself down, and I just don't
Yes.
think that's healthy. So, in the example I usually give people when I describe this programming, we were at this lunch for this other clinic I used to work at before I owned my own, and we're having lunch. And this one girl I used to work with, God bless her, she's an awesome girl. Her name's what's her name? Oh my God, Chelsea. And great girl. I used to joke around with her. We used to be like, I used to call her my arch nemesis. We used to be playful, right?
Right.
And we're sitting there, and I just stopped and like, I'm fucking amazing. I am fucking amazing. And everyone starts laughing. And she's like, oh my God, Valter, you drive me crazy. I'm like, why? And she's like, you're so conceited. And I'm like, no. I go, I'm just celebrating who I am. I don't think I'm better than anybody or worse than anybody. But I'm going to celebrate me.
Yeah.
Because that's just the way I roll. I go, you're amazing too. I go, the only difference is you're boring. I'm not boring. She's like,
All
screw you. So it was hilarious. Like I made a nice joke.
right.
My thing is, why don't we celebrate ourselves? Because the way you look at yourself is the way you're going to look at the outside world,
Right.
right? And if you're celebrating you, you'll celebrate others.
And I don't think we're taught that.
That's the
It's much
problem.
more like the dog eat dog world.
Yes. Because I've heard people say when they try to pump themselves, I'm the best. I'm like, but you're not. They're like, what?
Right.
I'm like, you're not the best. You're great,
Right.
but you're not the best.
It was funny. There was this thing going around, when you see like on social media, these vibes and everything where, you would see, I saw this mostly with women where it was like these recordings of like, F everyone else, I'm a bad bitch. And then all of a sudden and I just kept seeing and seeing, it's like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
what that means. Right. And then all of a sudden I started seeing the videos
Mhm.
of saying, stop saying that because you do care. And that's okay because it means you're a good person. Like, and
Sure.
you're a
Absolutely.
badass, but you're like, it just needed to be tweaked a little for me.
Yeah. And it's like they don't understand that words are very powerful, right? Like when you're spelling words, or saying words, you're casting a spell. You're
Right.
putting vibrations out there that are going to come back to you. So you got to be cautious of how you speak certain words because they're very powerful. We just don't understand how
Yeah.
powerful they really are.
I remember this one time I was going through when you said that, it made me remind me of a story of when people say, well, I don't believe in all that energy stuff and everything. I'm like, okay, so I have a story for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was one time where I was going through a really hard time with different things with people in my life. And I got together with friends of mine, and I don't know why, but they knew I was going through something, and they brought me a single flower.
Okay.
And so I was holding the flower and I was telling them the story of everything that was going on. And they stopped me during the story and they said, Patrick, look at the flower. And it had started to die.
Wow.
And we're talking
Unbelievable.
15 minutes.
Wow. I totally believe that.
And I was
That's
just like, oh,
wild.
my first thought is, oh shit, I'm in trouble. Like, not with that of like, if my energy's this bad, oh, I knew what it meant. I knew what it meant. I was like, okay, we got to do something here. This is danger. Like, but the power of that, and when you said that too, like with words and everything, of holy crap, that's what we're putting in our body. That's what we're putting. Like when you're talking about food, someone taught me years ago of, always pray over your food, of just like gratitude and everything, but
Yeah.
also knowing what's in it. And a child, I remember I was at a spiritual retreat once, and there was a young kid there, such an amazing, loving, he was probably like 8.
Hmm.
And it was funny because he didn't speak English, he spoke French.
Okay.
And I spoke a little French.
Yeah.
And we were all at dinner, and I went to eat, and he stopped me. He's like, "You need to pray over your food." That was just
Wow.
like, okay, like he was, because it was loving. Like, this is what we do, like,
Yeah.
because we're giving thanks and everything, and then it's putting that intention of what we're putting in our body, is we want it to be that highest vibration of love.
Hmm.
And even to this day, years later, it's like, even when I go to have something, I'm like, I want to do that because it feels better.
Yeah.
And
I
then,
do it with my water as well.
mhm.
And I think of the Dr. Emoto studies. Do you know who Dr. Emoto is? You probably do, maybe not by name.
Okay.
So, Japanese scientist, passed away maybe about 10 years ago. He would take water and he would say positive things like, "Oh, I love you, thank you." And he would freeze the water and look under a microscope, and it would crystallize the beautiful patterns like snowflakes.
Oh,
And then when he would say negative things like, "I hate you, I want to kill you," it would scatter
wow.
like it's being attacked. When he would say positive people, Jesus, Buddha, Mother Teresa, crystallized patterns. When he'd say Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, these type of people, it would scatter. Now, and then when you play like soft Beethoven music, and it would crystallize. When you play heavy metal, it would scatter. The only thing I don't know from the study is, was it the actual words or the names or the type of music, or was it the energy from him and his interpretation of those words
Right, right,
and the music?
right,
Because what if someone likes heavy metal? Does it
right,
crystallize?
right, right. Because I know a lot of people who do that with therapeutic.
That's right. So if you got a person who loves it, would the water crystallize? We don't know.
Right.
That's where
That's
I would
interesting.
question the study. That's the
Hey,
only
add
thing.
it to your
Everything else,
list. I mean, you got spare time, right? Like, just just take that on.
sure. I'm going to add that as another study.
I
Why
mean,
not?
well, next time you'll be back, it's like, by the way, this new study I'm doing.
That is so funny. But yeah, so when I saw that, and then the other one he did was, I think it was like a bowl of rice, 3 bowls of rice. One, he would say good morning. The other one, he would say something rude, and then he would ignore the third one.
Okay.
After a month, the rice that he said good morning to, all the nice things, was pearly white
Mm,
as the first day. The second one was rotting. The third one, it was carcinogen black rock.
wow.
So what I took from that study was, as humans, if that's what it does to rice, what is it doing to
Mm,
us?
right.
And how many people are living there alone, sad, miserable, no human contact, no like verbal contact, no human touch, no nothing. They're rotting on the inside
Mm,
out.
right.
No, and they don't even know it. No one even knows. That's what's happening to those people. That's how detrimental that is.
Right.
So, you know, if you're running into anybody, if anyone is watching this, just try to leave people with an impression of increase, right? Make them feel good. Smile at a person, open a door, because you might have been the one person who did something good for that person. You have no
Mhm.
fucking idea,
Right.
and it's just like, be that person.
Right. Plant those seeds.
Yeah,
So one of
absolutely.
the last thing I always like to ask is, what is one piece of advice that you like to leave the audience with? Is that what it is, or do you have something else?
No. We if you want to answer on that, that's good.
Giddy up.
Okay. One piece of advice,
Yeah.
honestly, I think, is view the world as your teacher.
Mm,
And if you view the world as your teacher, don't take anything too personal, because it's not meant to hurt you, it's meant to teach you, and learn and be a better person from it.
right.
Because if you could do that, it's like, if you actually take this as a big game, okay, and it's a game to be enjoyed, but there are lessons to learn for your soul,
Right.
then it's going to be a lot more fun and enjoyable.
Right. I love that. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you so much for coming to Friday Night
That
Feels.
flew by.
I know. Well, you're gonna have to come back. I hope you realize.
For sure. I am more than
I'm already planning.
Okay, perfect.
So thank you so much for coming. And so I asked this before. Is it just under your name that they would find you on social media,
So
or
you can find me under Valter Feleja on Facebook. Instagram is Mr. Valter Feleja.
okay?
And then if you want to email me, that's fine. It's valterfeleja@gmail.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for coming and joining us.
No problem.
And
Thank you.
thank you for everyone who comes and supports Friday Night Feels. I hope you all have a beautiful weekend, and we will see you in 2 weeks on Friday Night Feels. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.